Okay, this is going to be chapter 7, and what you might want to do is have the multiple choice questions in front of you as we go along, because we're going to go just right through them as they appear in the textbook. Question number 1 is asking really about how do changes in foreign currency vis-a-vis the exchange rate change the gain or loss from a standpoint of the accounting in those. And so here's a typical question: which of these combinations describes the relationship? And so if you look down at C, for example, you'll see that if you're buying something from overseas, it's an import purchase, that's what that means. You're buying it from overseas and you're dealing in the foreign currency. You agree to pay in the foreign currency, say 90 days from now, and during that period the foreign currency weakens in relationship to your currency, your home currency. Then you'll be able to use less of your home currency when you go to pay it off, to pay it in the foreign currency 90 days from now. So that's why it's a gain, and that's what the answer is. C is the correct answer to number 1. And that is a foreign currency gain that we're talking about, separating the transaction into two parts as we discussed in class. One, you bought it at an agreed upon price on the day you agreed, the day of the purchase, and then by the time you go to pay it off, you win because you agreed to pay it off in the foreign currency, and in the meantime, your home currency, let's say if it's U.S., your dollar strengthened, so you need less dollars to pay it off. That's the gain. Question 2 is simply going over the theory that we just used to answer question 1, and that is, in the United States, for U.S. GAAP purposes, we look at this as a two-transaction perspective where we accrue foreign exchange gains and losses. We don't defer them. We accrue them. That means at balance sheet date we recognize where things are, even if the transaction hasn't concluded. Remember, in the classic, so the answer is D. Remember, in the classic example, this is the day of the transaction. This is day 1. Here's the balance sheet, and we don't conclude the transaction until, say, 4/30 the next year. So at the balance sheet date, we recognize the unrealized and unrecognized gain or loss of the transaction, and even though it may change by the time we get to the end. So that's the United States U.S. GAAP perspective. Okay, question number 3 is asking about a U.S. company purchased parts from a Portuguese company, and the payment's due December 1. If the U.S. company's operating income included no foreign exchange gain or loss, the transaction could have, and the answer here is the one that I mentioned in class. That's sort of the AICPA typical trick question. The answer is B. It most likely was denominated in U.S. dollars, thus there was no gain or loss risk in the foreign exchange market. Moving ahead to number 4. This is C. We have a receivable from a foreign customer that is payable in the customer's local currency. So assuming that Post Inc. is a U.S. company, on December 31, they correctly include the receivable for 200,000 local currency units in its balance sheet at $110,000 U.S. When it was finally collected on February 15th, the U.S. dollar equivalent was $95,000. Therefore, in the 2016 year, what happened between December 31st, 2015 and the finalization of this sale was that there was a foreign exchange loss, and the question is how much, and the answer is clearly C, $15,000 lost because the currency as a receivable was included on the balance sheet at 110, and therefore they lost $15,000 in the interim period.